Okay. You don't know what I'm talking about, do you? I was handed the paper, and the writing is way too small for my eyesight, so I don't know what it says. All I saw was a little memo on a little sticky thing that says meeting has been canceled. So I'll read it during the commercial. All right. Welcome, anyway.
How are you?
Mayor John Mitchell. I'm doing good. How you doing?
I'm doing all right.
Yeah.
I'm doing all right.
It's a Friday. We're not cleaning up after a hurricane. That's good.
Oh, yeah. No, you and I talked about that last week, about the track of Florence, and we do keep an eye on such things, and we had DPI making, taking the usual preliminary measures of, topping off the generators with gas, cutting down tree limbs, clearing out catch basins, and so they went ahead and still did all that stuff, and even after it became clear that the storm wasn't going to come directly toward us, but because we're in hurricane season, so we might as well get some of that work done anyway.
Right.
But yeah, I mean that's quite a storm, and it's just going to park itself right over some of those coastal cities in North Carolina and South Carolina, North Carolina in particular. And man, that's a lot of rain.
Yeah, I guess we're going to get some of that rain later, maybe Tuesday, but not going to be anything at all like they're dealing with.
I think we're going to have a good weekend.
That's what I hear.
It's looking up right about now.
Yeah,
looking outside.
Yeah, it's been blue like this right to that point, right to the bottom of my blinds.
I see.
I can see the blue, but it's been cloudy
that,
from here over.
Yes, I can attest that Barry is saying right over the grocery store.
It's blue.
Yeah, it's blue.
And is it blue in New Bedford too, or
the sun's always shining over New Bedford, as you know. Yes, no, it looks good. It looks good. It's I think it's going to be a good weekend.
All right, so let's talk trash.
That line's going to get really old.
It's getting old. It's already
point.
old. I had a guy call in yesterday and said, "Would you stop talking about that?" But that's what everybody calls in. They want to talk about. So. Yeah,
look, I mean, it's something that affects everybody. It's a service that's provided to everyone. Trash and recycling removal, and it's an important service. So people should, people pay their hard-earned tax dollars to have that service, and that's kind of what this is about. It's about what they're paying for and what they were promised to get for their money.
Mm-hmm. Well, trash is one of those things. It's kind of like it happens, and if it's happening well, nobody notices it. And it's like, Sunday night I put my trash cans out front. Monday I come home from work, wheel them back into the backyard, and that's it. That's all I have to worry about.
Right.
So then when all of a sudden we're hearing, well, this contract's going to be canceled, or we want out of the contract, or we're going to sue those Mickey Mouse people, or, maybe we won't pick up, maybe we will, then people start to get a little bit nervous.
Well, they do, and that's why we've been on ABC like a hawk to make sure that they're not breaking the contract. And, we've raised a number of what we believe are violations of the contract, and in that, we've heard of instances where they've rejected carts even though they didn't contain ineligible items, or more frequently they rejected carts and didn't say why they rejected them, even though the contract requires it. So, we'll continue to monitor that. But as far as we can tell, the rejections are going down right now, and we'll continue as a city government to monitor the situation, but also to remind people of what's in and what's out. And so we direct people to the website. I think we're going to have like a poster or a sticker for the carts so that people can have an everyday reminder. And of course, not every conceivable item will be listed on there. And so there's sometimes a judgment call. And when people, have a question about, the rule of thumb I have is, when in doubt, leave it out, right? If it's, like one thing came up the other day with aluminum foil, right? So, you think, well, it's aluminum, and maybe, like a beer can, it can go in the recycling bin. I don't know whether it can or it can't, but I think one of my kids threw it in the recycling bin, so I took it out just in case. That's the close calls like that. It's always I always blame the kids for.
Yeah, there you go. Well, if it's got food stuff on it, they can't go in anyway.
So there's, but I would just say, look, check out the website. The city, as it has over the years, will continue to remind people what's eligible and ineligible. And if you have doubts about it, don't put it in the recycling. Because
the list of things that is acceptable has changed, right? There's been some changes.
No, it's been the same all along. I mean, it's a list that's derived essentially from a list created by the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection.
All right, so Mike Camara called the show yesterday, and he said, there's a lot of misinformation going on out there. He said, we have in our contract a provision that if there is a change, basically a change in conditions, that we get to ask the city for more money. And the change in conditions has been the fact that they can't dispose of the recyclables as easily as they could. It's costing them more to do that. So they feel that a judge is going to rule in their favor that that is a condition beyond their control. So therefore, under the terms of the contract, we're obligated to pay some more money to them. But you don't see it that way.
No, I mean, this is still where we've been all along. What he's saying is, and what he and his spokesperson, George Leontine, have been saying all along is that there is a force majeure provision. It's, in other words, an act of God provision in the contract that says that, and it says in effect, that the contract, and I don't have it in front of me, so I can't quote it directly, but it has an act of God provision that's sort of a way of getting out of it, your obligations under the contract, but it's only for the most extreme circumstances. Force majeure, or major force in English, or an act of God, these are very, very narrowly tailored legal terms that refer generally to, unless otherwise specified in the contract, refer generally to natural disasters, right? So there are probably going to be some people with homefront property and waterfront property in North Carolina today who are going to be looking for the force majeure clauses in their homeowners insurance contracts, right? It's that kind of stuff. This stuff doesn't qualify, and if they're so sure that they do, they should bring it right to the judge.
So I think everybody's trying to find a way, or at least most people are suggesting, at least all of the folks that are calling me are suggesting, there's got to be a way that we can sit down and negotiate this and figure out a way that we don't have to go to court and spend money in court. And,
we're not spending money in court. We have our staff attorneys who are working on this.
Well, we're paying them, right?
They get paid anyway, Barry. They're on salary.
All right, so I think most reasonable people want this thing resolved. I
want this thing resolved. So, but here's the thing. There are people who work really hard to pay their taxes in the city. I don't have to tell you that. I mean, there are small business owners who work really hard to make ends meet and who think that the tax bills in the city are too high. And I'm very sympathetic to that. And we've talked about taxes a lot on the show. The city's under a lot of fiscal constraints. There are retirees all over the city who live in their homes and who are on fixed incomes. And when when they see their tax bill go up, they feel it. And so I'm not going to we signed a contract that says ABC is going to do these services, pick up the recycling, pick up the trash, and the city's going to pay them a fee. And now they're coming back and saying, "Oh no, that's not enough." I mean, really, that's what this whole thing is about, Barry. So far be it from me to say, "Gee, those guys at ABC are nice guys, and so why don't we just pay them more money?" It kind of stinks that the Chinese government changed its regulations and made it harder for them to sell recycling materials to China. How can I do that? So if I do that, the next people in line will be the school bus contractors who will say, "You know what, our gas prices just went up, and boy, we're not as profitable as we should have been." Well, I'm sorry, but the folks in our city work really hard to pay taxes, and I treat their tax dollars like I would my own money, and I really mean that. And it's just the risk they bore.
Well, you have said on several occasions, show us your books, show us the need.
Yeah.
Now, Leontire's been on the program. Well, actually, Mike Camara was on yesterday, and Mike Camara said we've shown them everything. We've shown them everything. Leontire the day before said, "Well, we've shown them our books as it pertains to the recycling, but we're not obligated to show them everything." So you're not getting a full picture of what the company or how the company is being impacted.
Well, so I think I have a couple of responses to that. So first of all, I mean, you have an email that in front of you in which we asked them to show us, to demonstrate for us what their finances look like. They went for a loan. They went to get a loan at I can't remember which bank it was, and they presented, the bank with their finances, the financial statements, their profit and loss statements and balance sheet and so forth. And we said, well, as you can see in that email, show us.
Actually, I can't see the email. My eyes are not that good.
Show us what you showed the bank, right? And they didn't want to do that. There are a set of companies, and controlled by the same family. I love the Camaras. I have a good personal relationship with them, but they operate under a set of corporate names, all of which are intermingled, like lots of other family businesses. Nothing untoward or illegal about that, but if you're just looking at the finances of one component, you're not seeing the whole picture. And you had Mike Camara on, and you correct me if I'm wrong, because I didn't hear it directly, but others who reported it to me have said that you asked him the appropriate question, which was, so how's the financial condition of the company generally? And he said it's fine. Mm-hmm. So if it's fine,
well, sure.
Then what am I to do? I mean,
that's my point to him and to Lee and Tire is what you're asking the city to do is to take money from some other part of the city's budget and transfer it over to the trash to pay them.
Taxpayers. Yeah.
Right. So you think that's reasonable to ask, but yet when we say, why don't you transfer some money from elsewhere in your company to cover the losses in the recycling, you don't want to do that. You don't think that's fair. So if the money is there somewhere else in the company, then it's their responsibility under the contract.
Well, it's their responsibility anyway, to cover it, right? I mean,
well,
it would be their responsibility even if they were going under. Yeah. And what I've said is, look, if you guys are going under, we don't want to see that happen. We're willing to take take a look at this, and they didn't want to do that. We don't have to do that under the contract. We've said we're going to pay X for you're providing trash and recycling removal services. Period. I mean, that's it. And so, if they don't want to show us stuff, right, their finances, well, fine, but okay, go perform the contract.
So they're not making a proper case to you that they are in dire financial shape.
They even made it to you. You asked the same question. They said, no, we're fine.
Right. Okay. So at this point, what you're saying is that, and I don't want to misrepresent what you're saying, but what I understand you to be saying is, look, if you can make a case to us and prove to us,
we'll consider it.
Then we don't have to do
that. We don't have to do that. We'll consider it.
But to this point, they've been reluctant to do that. They don't want to do that. Okay. I'm assuming from the discussion about meetings, I seriously, my eyesight is not that great to read these tiny little letters, but there was a meeting. There was a meeting scheduled. Is that the?
There were many meetings over several months, and we asked the question. We have to see a bigger picture here, and they haven't shown it.
All right. So currently there are no meetings scheduled with these.
And so it begs the question: if they're not showing us the rest of their finances, and they're telling you on air that the company's finances are fine, then I'm not sure what else to say, but geez, I'm sorry you're not as profitable as you should be, but we expect you to perform, your obligations under the contract.
So the next thing, there's no meeting scheduled. The next thing is to go to court.
Yeah. And by the way, I mean, we're already in court. I mean, the case is pending. And, if they think that, they're entitled under the contract to, under the active guard or force majeure clause for some relief, then they can argue that to the court. I don't think it's a winning argument, but they can do that. In the meantime, they have to pick up the trash. They have to pick up the recycling.
All right, let me grab some calls on this.
And by the way, I mean, the city council got that last night. I mean, I don't know if you've talked about this on the show, but the city council took up this idea last night that somehow the city council should officiate some sort of, dispute resolution. And the council voted it down 8-3. They weren't buying it. I mean, the city council got it right. The councilors who approve contracts all the time recognize that, no, we agreed to a number for you, ABC, to provide certain services. And so that's what we expect you to do. And by the way, the bus company that comes in and says, gas prices have gone up, give us some relief, is going to get a no answer as well, and so on and so forth. We do contracts all the time in city government. Many the longer ones, of a certain, I can't remember what the threshold amount is, but the bigger ones, the longer ones have to be approved by the city council. So the councils are familiar with this process as well.
All right, let me grab a couple of calls and we'll get this in and we'll move on to something else because there's some other stuff too, charter schools and all kinds of other stuff happening. 508-996-0500. And thanks for hanging on. You're first with the mayor this hour. Go ahead.
Hello.
Hello.
Barry.
Hello, you're on the air.
Calling in from OB.
What was that?
Calling in from OB, Oak Bluffs.
Oh, hey, how are you?
I'd like to stay up island. I hope we're going to see you tomorrow or Saturday, whatever it is, the 15th, at the Century House.
All right, yeah, we're gonna be over there. But tell you what, let's save that for another time. We got the mayor in the studio right now. We're talking about business. 508-996-0500. You're up next on WBSM.
Hey, how we doing?
Good.
Good.
Hey, question for you, Barry. I know this whole thing with the taxes, with the garbage and all that. But my question to the mayor and being a taxpayer and so forth, and living in the city, since I was born, these fishing industries along the waterfront that they're paying very low on property for rent or whatever. Is there any way we could have them help pay out with these taxes for the garbage?
Well, they have leases. There are a number of waterfront businesses that have leases that are, in many instances, 99 years in length that were signed mostly during the 80s.
Okay.
Not great deals for the city, in my view, but they also pay. They're also paying property taxes as well.
But it seems like they could do something to help the city, and they don't. And something like this, they could step up and pay for police cars, fire trucks, even help for plowing in the wintertime. And these businesses get bought for overseas, different parts of the world, and they're transferring that money over there. They're not giving anything back to the city.
Yeah, so there are some. So most of those businesses are paying their full property taxes. I hear what you're saying. There's been.
I appreciate it, Mayor, but like I said, I guess my biggest thing, if I was the mayor, I'd be like a Buddy Cianci. I would go after all of them and try to get money from them, and it would make them look good as well, and would help the city of New Bedford taxpayers. That's all. That's the point I'm trying to make. I wish you luck with the the whole outcome of this, and as a taxpayer, I hope it doesn't affect us as much either.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm trying to do. That's what I'm here to do. I'm protecting the taxpayer. I mean, it's, especially given the financial constraints that we have and when money's tight. I mean, we've been very reasonable with ABC. I don't feel, I'm not, as I said, I'm not unsympathetic to, their plight here. They're not making as much money on this contract as they had anticipated, but, the people I answer to are the 100,000 people that live in the city, and period.
All right, 508-996-0500. You're up next. Go ahead.
ABC had the first performance bond for this trash contract. Am I right, Mr. Mayor?
You broke up on the first part of your question. Go ahead and try it again.
Yeah, ABC had to furnish a performance bond with a capable surety to the city of New Bedford for this trash contract. Now, what I'd like to ask is about the bond. All eyes ought to go to the bond. Everybody wants a copy of the bond. Give a copy of the bond to WBSM. I want a copy of the bond in the hands of all interested parties, and see who the bonding company is, what's the amount of the bond, who signed the bond on behalf of the bonding company, was a proper power of attorney affixed to the bond, and who was the bonding agent. Right,
but I don't think they're violating the bond agreement in any way, are they?
No, I mean, the performance bond is there, as the name implies. If they don't perform, they are performing. They're picking up garbage and they're picking up recycling. Yeah.
Until they stop doing that, then there's no issue with the performance bond. Okay, thank you, my friend. 508-996-0500. Let me take the first break. We'll come back with some other stuff right after this with the mayor at 1420 WBSM. All right, welcome back to the program. It's Midweek with the Mayor on a Friday afternoon at 2 o'clock, and we've been talking about the ABC controversy. Last night, the City Council, there was a resolution. I guess 4 members of the City Council want to stop the expansion of the charter school, the Alma Del Mar Charter School. And they're looking for 1,188 more charter school seats and maybe 2 more schools. Global Charter School looking for more seats. You've maintained from the start that this is charter schools are really taking money away from the public school system, right?
Yeah,
so
indeed they have. Yeah, so and the resolution was sent to committee. It was sponsored by Councilor Dunn, who I think made a very compelling argument about it. Councilor Lopes as well, and the other councilors who joined on. Councilor Markey, who was, whose statements were in the last newscast. We can't afford it. I mean, it's not even a question of charter schools, yes or no. What are your feelings about charter schools? The city of New Bedford just can't afford it anymore. We pay, I think it's a net of $14 million this year, almost $15 million because of the charter schools, and that's money that's taken right out of the school district. And we've had a school district where every year we are a little bit below the state minimum requirement for spending in our school district. And I think our district needs more money. I wish we were in a position financially to give it more money. We'd like to work to that. We're trying to work to that point. But God, until we get to that point, it's we can't afford to have any more charter seats.
Why do you think there is a demand for so many charter seats? Why do you think so many people want that for an option?
I think there is a conventional wisdom out there that charter schools provide in every instance a better option than district schools, right? And every parent wants the best for their kids. I think people shouldn't embrace that idea sight unseen. We've had, our school district has improved a lot in the last few years, and despite some challenges, more and a bigger influx of students with little English skills, and so what may be reflected in MCAS scores doesn't really give a full picture of what's going on in the school system. If you talk, for instance, to our former superintendent Pia Durkin, who had been in who had observed instruction in the charter schools in the city, and of course many times over in the district, she'd say, the instruction in the district's better. It is just better, and so. There's always a little bit more than meets the eye on these things. The argument often is one between that charters offer is one that appeals directly to one's personal interest as opposed to the collective interest. In other words, they'll argue that there's a waiting list, so that means that it's that we're doing something right here, and just by virtue of the demand for services. And but the reality is that charter schools don't have to educate all the kids, right? They educate the kids who get in by lottery, and even that's not exactly a neutral mechanism to admit kids to a school, right? Because not everybody participates in the lottery, and then there are kids whose parents might say, they don't, especially in the area with special ed, a lot of special ed students, charter schools will tell them, you really don't have the services that you need. And so it's not a neutral mechanism. But at the same time, the district, when the district loses students, it loses the benefits of scale, right? The larger the school district, the more resources you have to do all the other things, sports, arts, transportation, and all the things that are district wide, right? So, therein lies the big problem for us. I mean, the big challenge. When we lose students, we lose the ability to fund the things that we need to be doing. I think just sort of stepping back, at some point there's got to be some kind of reconciling, especially at the state level, and I think the charter school folks would agree with this. That there has to be more funding from the state, but also I think the state needs to look at funding charters, and similar to the way that some states do, which is to say directly from the state, instead of having the money come out of the district. If a charter is issued by the state pays for pays to establish the school and to operate it. So, and some states do it that way. I think that's actually a better model because it doesn't result in the pitting of districts and the charter schools in their communities.
But the money issue aside, there is the perception out there that people are going to get a better education for their kid at a charter school. That's why people are clamoring to get into them, right?
That is the perception, and in certain places that may be true. It's not true in every place.
Do they have the discipline problems?
I don't know. I think it varies. So even in the charter schools in our city, you hear varying accounts of the level of decorum and order and discipline. So it varies school by school. We have 3 charter schools, and without pointing fingers, there certain ones are seen as schools that are squared away, and others aren't.
Well, at least what we hear. My kids haven't been in school for a while, so I don't have firsthand experience with this in several years. But at least what we hear from parents is that if their kids are in a charter school, discipline is less of a problem because you can be invited to leave if you don't follow the rules. Where you can't be invited to leave from
that's right,
from one of the public schools.
That's right.
So they feel as though, and you and I have had this discussion a number of times about discipline in the schools, and you'll sit and tell me that discipline is not an issue, and that violence is not an issue. And then I get 50 parents that'll call me up and say, my kids just came home and told me about a big brawl in the school, and there's a big fight every day.
Right.
So the parents are telling me one thing, and the students. You talk to ask a New Bedford High School student. And they'll tell you the same.
I have 2 of them at home, so I talk to them.
Well, I guess there are
all
different
the time.
realities for different students, right? I don't know what happens in all the different houses. I know when I went to the high school many years ago, different things happened in different houses. The greenhouse back then was the place where all the the real smart kids were, and I was in the dumb house. I was in the place where all the hellions were.
Come on. But here's the thing. So I hear what you're saying, right? So. What one might argue is, that's true. So charters can get rid of students. The vocational school can get rid of students, right? But if the mission of public education is to educate everybody who comes in the door, right? I think people generally we all believe in that. Then how well does that model serve everybody? It doesn't. My philosophically, I think there is a role for charters. I think there's a role for them as they were originally intended, which is as a laboratory for curriculum and teaching and new methods of delivering extracurricular. So just more flexibility that the district could learn from. But if you take it to its logical extreme, you could charterize every school. That's what's, some cities have tried that. New Orleans is an example of that. And you see good results in some places and not so good results in others, and lots of services that don't get delivered because there's no overarching, set of district mechanisms to do that, sports and arts and so forth. So, but all that aside, that's a debate about the charter model and whether it's good for any particular place. My point is, it doesn't matter. The city can't afford the imposition of the cost. We can have these debates, and it's a good debate to have, and the public should have the debate. All I'm saying is that New Bedford, Massachusetts, right now, and given its fiscal standing, can't afford to be taken on more charter seats. Period. And the council took that up last night, and they kicked it over to the committee, and I applaud the councilors who, like Hugh Dunn and Brad Markey and Joe Lopes, who really are sensitive about not just the interest of taxpayers, but also the fiscal stability of the city. We have to be concerned about that.
I just wonder, is it time that we rethink what we're doing anyway in terms of
Maria
education?
Jesta was another one who supported it. Yeah.
We've got we've got charter schools, and you've got a demand for more charter school seats. People have the perception that their kids are not getting the type of education in the public schools they can get at a charter school. Whether that's true or not, I'll have to take people's word for that. We've got a huge demand for more vocational education. I mean, Voc has a waiting list of over 500 kids every year.
Yeah.
So I mean, are we really doing the best we can do to serve the public that way? I mean, shouldn't we?
Which way?
Well, I mean, why not have more vocational education? Take one of the middle schools and make it into a vocational training facility or something. And when I was in school back in the day, I mean, we learned how to, do various things, and then in terms of vocational ed, and then we could decide if we wanted to pursue that or go after the college courses or whatever. And that's not really offered anymore. So there aren't that many
in middle
options.
School, yeah. I mean, the stuff that there isn't the stuff back in that day that was offered.
We learned how to change wagon wheels and stuff
like wagon wheels. Yeah, put a
shoe the horses,
saddle a horse. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think there's something to be said for that. At what point, though, do you want a kid to pick a career track? Right? There's an age where you want kids to sort of experiment. You want kids to learn different stuff and have a broad base.
They're hitting the wall in the middle school, right? That's where we see most kids hit the wall, right?
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of them that don't want that college experience. It's not for them. They want to learn more about trades and want to do more.
They do, and so that's a discussion for another day. But one of I think the challenges the city faces is that a lot of the kids, and we all know, we all grew up with people like this, and have members of our families and whatnot, who people who might not thrive in a conventional classroom, but who, if given the opportunity to do a trade, would really thrive because they'd really get into it, and it's just that they have a skill set that lends itself to that. And a lot of those kids these days are not getting into the vocational.
No, and you got to wonder if those kids are getting lost and wind up being the disciplinary problems down the road.
I think that is a problem. Yeah, that is no doubt a problem. And they're the students who would thrive in a trade. A lot of the kids who would thrive in a trade are not getting into the vocational school these days. I mean, I don't think I'm saying anything that's newsflash to anybody. I think if you live in New Bedford, you're familiar with the school system, you're familiar with the vocational system. Yeah, there are lots of kids who would do very well by going to Voc who aren't getting in because of the selective admissions process.
So can we shift, not the entire system, but a part of our system to address that, to at least introduce kids to vocational fields that they might want to explore further? I mean, maybe if you're introducing them to this in the middle school level, maybe they'll decide they want to go on to Voc, or maybe they'll say, hey, you know what, this isn't for me, and I do want to pursue college.
There isn't a shortage of kids who are applying to Voc. About 70.
Oh, we know that. Yeah,
about 75% of the students in New Bedford apply to Voc.
Yeah. So that's the point, though. A lot of them can't get in.
A lot of them can't get in because
so they wind up in the high school, and it's not what they want. We lose them, and they wind up getting in trouble.
You get a lot of kids. So the kids, obviously you get kids at New Bedford High School is a very robust advanced placement program. You get a lot of kids who go to New Bedford High for that, and but there are lots of kids who, there's some kids at New Bedford High who wanted to get in the Voc to pursue a trade and couldn't get in because they were absent too many days or may have had some blemishes on their disciplinary record,
or there just weren't enough seats.
Well, yeah, but what I'm saying is, it's a public school that has a selective admissions policy. So on both ends, on the admissions end and on the attrition end, right? So if they're not cutting it over at Voc Tech, the school can let them go. We have all. Yeah. So we've had these discussions with the Voc Tech administration, and I think at some point that admissions policy has to be revisited, because I think there are too many kids in our city who are missing out on the opportunity that Voc Tech
Well, can the public
offers.
School system in any way pick up some of the slack?
Well, sure. So the school committee last year approved a new position as I forgot the name, but it's basically a vocational coordinator to start to create those programs. But at the end of the day, if you have a city of our size, you have to have a high school that offers a traditional liberal arts curriculum, right? Yep. Because not everybody's going to go into a trade. You want a high school to produce, professionals, accountants, lawyers, doctors, and so forth as well, right? And so that's.
But we need those plumbers and electricians.
You do, and at the end of the day, you're trying to. What we're trying to do is, match kids with their educational aspirations and their skills, right? You want there to be a good fit. And, that's what we have to work for, it seems to me. And I think we have, there's some, and by the way, New Bedford is hardly the only place that's,
this is all over the country. Everybody's talking
all around the country. I think it's, there were issues in Massachusetts. So the selective admissions process at vocational schools is becoming increasingly controversial around Massachusetts. There are a number of mayors that are complaining about it. And, here in New Bedford, we've tried to to engage in a dialogue, and I think that dialogue has to continue. Yeah.
I mean, we just went through a period where everybody had to go to college, and we stopped the vocational training, and we stopped, exposing kids to that. And I think we're beginning to realize now that not everybody's college material, and they don't want to go to college.
No, we shouldn't look at it that way. Most people do go to college now, but like in my family, most of my family members didn't go to college, and that's fine. I mean, it's not, what you're trying to do is match it. No, yeah,
there's nothing wrong with that.
But stigma with that.
We shouldn't be.
We should try, but what we try to do, I think, to remain economically competitive as a country and as a city, we need to match kids with their aspirations and their skills, and match their by making sure that they are going to the right high school. But beyond that, we have to cultivate an ethic of lifelong learning, because people aren't staying in their jobs. Very few people are staying in their jobs for 30 years. They have people. They're going to be, we're going into a period where where people will be changing, careers multiple times over the course of their adult lives as technology changes, and we're looking at a wave of, automation in many industries in the years ahead. People, we need to have a society that says, learning is a good thing, and retraining is a good thing, and we have to be ready for that.
Right, absolutely. All right, let's grab a couple of calls on this, because the line's lit up like a tree. 508-996-0500. You're up next with the mayor. Go ahead. Hello? Oh, I think I might have cut you off. You're next in WBSM. I apologize if I cut you off.
Yes, hi.
Hi.
Oh, you're there. Okay.
I am. I'm listening intently.
The mayor has such a good point that it has to continue like it is. Vocational schools or any school, there are certain standards that have to be met. And, the parents have to comply with that, too. You can't be absent all the time, and, everything else going forward. It's a real problem.
Yeah. Well, I think certainly everybody would agree with that. There's no question. All right, let's go this way. 508-996-0500. You're next on WBSM. Good afternoon.
Hi, Mr. Mayor.
Hi.
I just want to remind you that I live in the district around Alma's, Delmar, and adding 100 kids to a school would only increase the traffic problem. So don't forget that.
Oh, I don't. There is. I think there's congestion around every school around pickup and drop-off time.
That's a dangerous situation.
But over there on Belleville Avenue, it's probably worse than most.
I make my way past there while they're getting out of school in the afternoon, and it's incredibly dangerous.
Yeah. So
I think that should be one consideration when they're considering adding 100 kids to the school. That's the only point I'm trying to make.
Okay, no, good fair point. Thank you
very much. 508-996-0500. You're next with the mayor. Go ahead. Hello?
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, Mayor, I'd like to ask you a question.
Mm-hmm.
Why can't New Bedford High School offer like a basic vocational courses? Like when I was in school, in high school, we had basic shop courses. It was called general shop, where you took automotive, woodworking, machine shop. You had different kinds of drawing classes, electrical, this kind of stuff. And each the students would only spend maybe 6 to 7, 8 weeks in each class, and they would rotate around. That way, the kids get an idea of what's out there and maybe what they would like to do in the future.
Yep.
Now, I know vocational high school had stuff like that, but they're probably going into more detail than what the high school would probably do, which is, I'm just saying maybe a basic course.
Some kind of an introduction. So thank you for the comment.
So, but as I was saying, I probably wasn't too clear about it, but there's a there's a an effort underway in the school system to create some vocational programs at New Bedford High School. It's not going to become a vocational school per se. It's still it's still going to be a traditional comprehensive high school with a liberal arts based curriculum because for the reasons I mentioned earlier, every city needs that. But no, I think there's something to be said for that. You also don't want the kids. I think we have to be mindful that a vocational program at New Bedford High School, we don't want something like that to be seen as sort of a second class thing, right? In other words, for kids who didn't get into voc, you can do this one, and the certificate you get isn't as if it's not as seen as worthwhile as the one at the vocational school, then that's a problem. Taunton High School a few years ago adopted some vocational programs and got additional funds from the state under what the so-called Chapter 74 program to support the effort, and it seems to be working pretty well. Taunton High School hasn't become a vocational school, but it has some of those offerings, and that's the way that we're looking at it.
I think it's more inclusive, and really provides a little bit of something for everybody out there, and it kind of helps some kids find their way. And I wonder if you'd have as much demand for charter schools if there were,
hard to know. At high school it's a little bit different because once you get to high school, then there are the extracurriculars,
right,
and that are an important part of any school choice. There are lots of kids who play sports and art or in band and such, and so that's part of the whole package. And that question really doesn't come up as much with elementary schools.
All right, let me take a break. We'll come right back. Stay with us. And welcome back. We got about 2 minutes left to go before we wrap things up for the day and for the week, for that matter. And so what's happening this week? Got something going on the Ave? Is that
Indeed. You know, it just occurred to me. It's Friday, Barry.
It is Friday.
You know, I'm just thrown off by our shifting schedule, I have to say. Yeah, so there's some good stuff going on. So a couple things. So there is the annual William Street Neighborhood Festival. That's right downtown William and 8th Street. We're over by Gallery X. So that's from 12 to 6. Check that out. You know, Gallery X is always doing great stuff, and this will be a good weekend to get over there. Operation Clean Sweep, of course. From 9 to 12 tomorrow morning. Get over there. It's at the St. Luke's Hospital parking lot on the corner of Page and Hawthorne Streets. And then there's the Love the Ave restaurant kickoff. We want to tout all the great restaurants on the Ave. That goes from, that's the afternoon and like sort of through the weekend. The kickoff event will be from about 1 p.m. to 2:30, and that'll be over at Chocolate con Pimenta, one of my favorite places to ruin a diet, over at the corner of like just off of Holly Street on the Avenue. So hope to see you there. You'll see me there if you go.
So it's this like all up and down the Avenue, all the restaurants.
Yeah, and it really, I mean, you know, there's some restaurants that haven't been there a long time. There's some new ones, but
Top Shelf.
Top Shelf's another one. Yeah, I mean, so there's a lot there. So if you haven't,
you ever have the rack of lamb at Top Shelf?
I haven't. No,
it's to die for. Yeah,
is that
really
right?
good.
The rack. I don't think
good.
I've ever ordered rack of lamb in a restaurant.
Yeah,
I should do that.
Very good.
Top Shelf's a good place.
It is a good place. Yeah. Get it with the spinach with the it's like
that sounds way too
sauteed
healthy
spinach.
for me.
It's good.
Yeah.
And the mashed potatoes.
All right.
Yeah, awesome.
Well, so you can eat at Top Shelf and any of the other great restaurants in the Ave. Check it out.
We'll see you next week.
Thanks, Barry.
All right. We're out of here. We're back on Monday. Don't forget, tomorrow it's Howie Carr and Ann Coulter over the Century House. Tickets are available at howiecarr.com. And Howie is up next. Red Sox tonight right here on WBSM. See you later.